You can stay for one night. We don't have room for more. That's what my daughter said the moment I stepped over her polished tile floor, still holding the poinsettia I'd brought. She didn't even look up from her phone when she said it. And I didn't say anything either. Not then. I just nodded, like a guest who overstayed some invisible welcome. I stood there in my coat, while my son-in-law mumbled a quick hello from the couch. The boys, all taller than me now, gave vague grins and disappeared back into their rooms. Only the youngest, Olivia, 13, hugged me tightly around the waist. "Grandma, you smell like cinnamon," she said, and that was the warmest thing I heard all day. They didn't ask how the trip was, didn't offer to carry my bag, just pointed at the folding cot in the laundry room and said, "Sorry, the guest room's full of boxes right now." Boxes. From the new kitchen installation I helped pay for last spring, but I didn't mention that. Just wheeled my bag down the hallway, past photos where I used to be included. Now, every picture on the wall was of the four of them on vacation, smiling under foreign skies I'd never been invited to. The laundry room smelled like detergent and mold. The cot was low and wobbled when I sat on it. They'd left a blanket folded neatly at the edge, one of those fleece throws they give out as company gifts. I unfolded it and sat with my hands in my lap, wondering when exactly I had stopped being family and started being furniture. Dinner was leftover pizza. No table settings, no candles, just slices on a paper plate, and you can warm it up if you want. Olivia sat beside me and asked about my cat. No one else spoke much. My daughter scrolled through her phone. My son-in-law argued with someone on a Bluetooth headset. The boys came in, took their food, and left. I had brought a tin of my holiday cookies, the ones they used to fight over as kids. Nobody touched them. That night, as the house darkened and I lay listening to the hum of the dryer, I stared at the ceiling and thought, this used to be home. Now it was just a night. One night. That's all they offered me. As if I didn't raise the girl who now thought me a burden. I didn't cry. I don't cry easily anymore. But something folded inside me neatly, like that company blanket. Morning came, and I already knew what I had to do. I woke before anyone else. The house was still, not quiet, but still. The kind of hush that comes when you're not expected to make a sound. I slipped out of the cot slowly, careful not to creak the frame. My joints protested, but I didn't wince. I've learned not to complain. Complaints get translated into difficult. The hallway lights were off. I walked past the photos again. The boys at the beach. Emmy. I still call her that in my mind, though now she insists on Emily, holding a champagne glass in some rooftop bar. Not a single frame had me in it. Even the one from her graduation had been swapped for a newer, shinier memory. The kitchen smelled like almond creamer and bacon grease. I found the coffee machine, but there was no coffee left. Just an empty carafe with a ring of residue. I didn't mind. I found a kettle and made tea. Sat at the far end of the table, where I used to sit when Olivia was little, and we played dominoes on rainy days. The mail was stacked on the counter, half opened, bills and brochures. On top of the pile was a glossy flyer from a travel agency. Spring in the Alps, family packages available. I smiled, not bitterly, just a small smile. They never liked the cold. But now, with the right jackets and someone else footing the bill, it's become romantic. A pair of slippers shuffled behind me, Emily, in her robe, looking surprised. "You're up early." No apology for yesterday, no warmth in her voice. "I didn't sleep much," I answered. She poured herself coffee, left me to the tea I'd already made. "The boys have soccer at 10. We've got a full day," she said. I nodded. We'll figure out when you want to head back. I can take the bus, I said. Not out of pride, but because I could already feel the tension of her trying to drop me off without guilt. No, we'll drive you. Just not sure what time yet. It's kind of hectic. The same house where I used to wipe scraped knees and read bedtime stories was now hectic. For me. The boys came in, all sweatshirts and headphones, barely looking up. My son-in-law followed, rummaging in the fridge and grunting when there was no orange juice. Olivia came down last, hair in a messy bun, eyes still sleepy. Grandma, come sit with me. She made space beside her on the couch, and I sank into the cushions slowly. We sat like that for a few minutes, while the others bustled around us. She leaned her head against my shoulder. I wish you stayed longer. I wish that too, honey. When they left for practice, I offered to stay and fold laundry. Emily looked hesitant but nodded. Sure, just don't mess with the colours, okay? I did her laundry for 20 years, but now I'm a liability to the towels. I folded each shirt carefully, not to help her, but because it helped me think. I thought about how she used to crawl into my bed when she was scared of thunderstorms, how she'd sit on the counter while I made lasagna, licking tomato sauce off the spoon, how her first paycheck was spent partly on a charm bracelet for me, with a tiny house hanging from it. You're my home, she'd said. I don't know when I stopped being that, but I do know one thing now. I won't be sleeping on a cot again. Not here. Not anywhere. By afternoon, the house had quieted again. Emily and the others were still out. Only Olivia had stayed behind, curled up on the couch with a book and her headphones on. I finished folding the last of the towels and sat back down in the laundry room, looking at the little suitcase I hadn't bothered to unpack. One night. That's what I had packed for, though I hadn't realized it at the time. The walls in that room were blank. No photos, no warmth. Just wire shelves with cleaning products and a plastic bin marked Christmas lights. I ran my hand along the top of it, still dusty. They hadn't even unpacked decorations. Probably too busy. I opened my suitcase, just to double-check I hadn't left anything around. My blouse was folded neatly. The envelope with the holiday card was still tucked inside the side pocket. The one with the check I had written last week. $10,000, meant to be a surprise gift. For them. For emergencies that always seemed to arise around January. I didn't take it out. Just closed the zipper again. I heard the front door open and braced myself. Emily walked in ahead of her husband, keys jangling. They were both laughing. She stopped when she saw me still sitting there. Oh, she said, surprised. You didn't want to rest? I'm fine, I answered. I didn't mention that I hadn't felt comfortable enough to nap, or that the cot made my back feel like gravel. We picked up lunch, she said, holding up a takeout bag. But it's mostly gone. The boys were starving. I nodded. I'm not hungry. There was a pause, and I could feel her scanning me like she used to do when I caught her sneaking in late as a teenager. Except now I was the one under suspicion. Maybe she sensed the shift. Maybe she didn't. Either way, she said nothing. Later, we all sat in the living room, not together, just in the same space. Emily's husband watched something loud on TV. The boys were glued to their phones. Olivia curled up beside me again. She offered me a jelly bean from a little tin and whispered, I like when you're here. That alone nearly broke me. Emily turned to me after a while. So, tomorrow, what's the plan? I was thinking of leaving in the morning, I said calmly. No need to fuss over it. Oh, okay, we'll take you after breakfast. I smiled. That won't be necessary. I have a ride. She blinked. A ride? From who? I'll take the car. She furrowed her brow. The car? You mean the Honda? It's in my name. Registration and insurance, too. There was silence in the room. Her husband muted the TV. One of the boys looked up, confused. Emily's lips parted, but no sound came. You said I could stay one night? I continued gently. That seemed fair. And one night is enough, I think. For all of us. I stood, walked toward the door, picked up my coat, picked up the keys that had hung on their little hook by the fridge since last spring, the car keys. And that was when they realized what I meant, what I was doing. I didn't slam the door. I didn't say another word. I left the cookies on the counter. I left the envelope in my bag. I left the cot still made. But I didn't leave the car. The air outside was sharp, but not cruel. The kind of cold that makes your breath visible and your decisions feel permanent. I sat in the driver's seat for a long moment before starting the engine. The car still smelled faintly of vanilla, Emily's air freshener, probably, or maybe Olivia's lip gloss. They'd driven it almost every day since I handed it over last year, with a handshake and a soft smile. Use it for errands, school drop-offs, whatever you need. I never asked for it back. Never even mentioned that the insurance bills still came to my address. I pulled out slowly from the curb. No one came after me. No running feet, no voices calling my name. I didn't expect them to. They watched me from the window, I think. I didn't turn to check. There was no destination in my head at first, just the need to move, to get distance between me and that house. Not my house. Not anymore. I stopped at a gas station 2 towns over, filled up, paid with my own card. The attendant smiled and asked, "Holiday shopping?" I smiled back politely. Not this year. I parked in the lot for a while and sat with my hands on the steering wheel. The weight of everything I hadn't said pressed against my chest. And then, slowly, began to lift. I thought about calling Brenda. We hadn't spoken in a few months, but she always said, "If you ever need a place to land, my door's never locked." I dialed her number. She picked up on the 3rd ring. "Martha? Oh my goodness. Is everything all right?" I smiled. "I could use a cup of your awful chamomile tea and a decent couch." Her voice lit up. "You get here. I'll put the kettle on. Bring your slippers." I started driving again, toward the hills, toward Brenda's warm kitchen and her even warmer sarcasm. The roads narrowed and the trees thickened. My phone buzzed twice. Emily. Then a message. "Mum, can you call me, please?" I didn't answer. I passed the same turn I used to take when I dropped Emily off at piano lessons. The building's still there. The paint is faded now, like so many things. Brenda's house sat at the end of a quiet street, its porch light already glowing in the late afternoon dim. She opened the door before I could knock, wrapped me in a hug that smelled of lavender and chicken broth. "You look like you need something hot and something strong. I can offer you weak tea and judgment." I laughed, for the first time in days. That's more than I got in the last 24 hours. We sat in her kitchen, steam rising between us. I told her the story, not all at once, not in a flood, just pieces, like breadcrumbs laid gently on the table. She listened, didn't interrupt. When I was done, she said simply, "They don't get to decide your worth. Not anymore." I nodded, took another sip of her terrible tea, let it warm me. That night, I slept on her couch with a real blanket, a decent pillow, and no one acting like I was a burden. And in the morning, I would go to the bank. Because it wasn't just the car, it was the line, and they'd finally helped me see it. Brenda's guest room wasn't fancy, but it had a real bed, a soft one, with clean sheets that smelled like lemon detergent and a comforter that actually covered my feet. I hadn't slept that well in years, not because of the mattress, though that helped, but because for the first time in a long time, I wasn't listening for steps outside my door, or a sigh of inconvenience, or someone asking when I was leaving. I woke to the smell of coffee and bacon. Brenda was in the kitchen, humming something tuneless, wearing a robe with faded roses on it. "Hope you're hungry," she said without turning. "I made eggs the way you hate them." "You always were a bad host," I smiled, easing into the kitchen chair. She slid a plate across the table and poured 2 cups of coffee. We sat in the sunlight, filtering through her checkered curtains, eating like people who've known each other long enough to not say much. After breakfast, I asked, "You still bank at State Street?" She gave me a look. "You ready?" I nodded. Past ready. We drove into town, Brenda behind the wheel now, the car officially mine again, though I didn't feel the need to parade that fact. The city looked the same. Stores I used to shop in, the cafe where I met Emily's teachers during her school years, places that held pieces of me, scattered like puzzle parts. The banker recognized me instantly. I'd been with them for over 30 years. Her name was Nora, always cheerful, always in control. "Mrs. Sewell, welcome back. What can I help you with today?" I placed a folder on her desk. Inside were documents I'd gathered over the years, account statements, insurance papers, investment reports, and tucked into the back, a notarized copy of the car's title. "I need to update some account information," I said, "and set up a new trust." Nora's eyebrows rose slightly, but she nodded. "Of course. For whom?" "My granddaughter," I replied. "Olivia." I didn't mention Emily, didn't mention how the trust had once been intended for her. Nora didn't ask. We spent an hour going over everything. I revoked the shared access Emily had to one of my accounts. I cancelled an automatic transfer for their property taxes. I set limits, boundaries, quiet ones, on paper. By the end of it, Nora handed me a small stack of forms. "This protects your assets, Mrs. Sewell. You'll be able to designate exactly how and when Olivia accesses them. It's a good plan." "I think so too," I said, feeling the unfamiliar thrum of certainty in my chest. Brenda and I left the bank and stopped by a bakery on the way home. She bought a lemon tart. I bought a small cake with white icing and gold lettering that read, "To New Beginnings." The girl behind the counter asked if we wanted it gift-wrapped. I said yes. Back at Brenda's house, I sat on the porch and looked at the sky. The light was shifting. The phone rang again. "Emily." This time I answered. "Mum?" "Thank God. Where are you?" "We've been calling you. The boys are worried." "The boys didn't speak to me once while I was there." She paused. "I didn't mean for it to come out the way it did. It's been hectic. The house is crowded. You could have told me you were upset." "I think you knew," I said quietly. More silence. Then, "Did you really take the car?" "I took what's mine. And I gave it to you once, freely. But you've forgotten that generosity has limits." "Mum, this is dramatic." "No," I said, standing. "Sleeping in your laundry room after raising you? That was dramatic. This is clarity." And I ended the call. I didn't cry after the call. I didn't pace or wring my hands or stare at the wall waiting for guilt to do its work. I'd done that before. Too many times to count. When Emily forgot my birthday. When she left me sitting in waiting rooms alone. When she snapped, "Not now, Mom," like I was an interruption in her real life. Every time I gave her the benefit of the doubt. That's what mothers do. That's what I did. But something in me had changed. Brenda came out to the porch carrying 2 mugs of hot chocolate. "Tea's overrated," she said, handing me one. "Sometimes a woman needs sugar and cocoa and a little marshmallow rebellion." I laughed. Not loud, but real. We sat in quiet again. That's what I love about Brenda. She doesn't fill silence with noise, just lets it breathe. "Do you think she'll come here?" Brenda asked finally. "She might," I said, "but I don't think she'll understand. Not really. Not yet." "What will you tell her if she does?" I looked down at my hands. "Nothing. I've said everything I need to say." Brenda nodded. "Good. Now drink your revolution." That night, I didn't sleep much. Not out of worry, the opposite, actually. I lay in bed, feeling something I hadn't felt in years. Control. Peace that wasn't dependent on someone else's mood. I wasn't in anyone's way. I wasn't being tolerated. I was exactly where I chose to be. In the morning, I made a decision. After breakfast, I drove back toward the city. I didn't go to Emily's house. I didn't want another confrontation, another half apology masked as a guilt trip. I went to a small school on the south side, the one Olivia had mentioned wanting to attend if she could find a way. It wasn't fancy, but it had promise. I asked to speak to someone in the admissions office. The woman there, warm-eyed and brisk, explained the financial aid process, the deadlines, the scholarships. I listened, nodded, took notes. Then I asked a single question. Can I contribute directly to her tuition without it going through her parents? The woman smiled. Absolutely. We have a deferred donor option. You can specify the recipient and timing. I'd like to start the paperwork. And I did. It wasn't a grand gesture. It wasn't revenge. It was redirecting. Energy, love, support, all the things I gave so freely for so long. But this time, not to be erased. After I signed the final page, I sat in the car for a long moment, looking at the city's skyline. I remembered holding Emily's hand when we first came here. A new job for her father, a new school, a new house. She cried the first night, missed our old town, her friends. I held her for hours. Now, all these years later, I was done holding space where I wasn't wanted. My phone buzzed again. Another message, not from Emily, from Olivia. "Grandma? Where are you? Dad's upset. I don't care. I just want to know if you're okay." I read it twice, then replied, "I'm better than okay, sweetheart. I'm beginning." Brenda wasn't surprised when I walked back into her kitchen, holding a manila envelope and a look she hadn't seen on my face in years. "You did something," she said, pouring coffee like it was a ceremony. "You've got that 'I just rewrote my will and nobody knows it yet' glow." I set the envelope on the table. "Tuition, for Olivia, direct to the college." Brenda raised her eyebrows, impressed. "Now that's poetic, not spiteful, strategic." I sipped my coffee, let it sit in the silence a moment. "I'm not angry, Bren. Not anymore. I'm realigned." She chuckled. "Only you would describe a betrayal like a chiropractor." But she understood. She always did. It wasn't about punishment, not even close. I didn't want to see Emily hurt. I just didn't want to see myself erased anymore. There's a difference. A big one. I spent the rest of the morning writing, a letter, longhand, in ink. I didn't want it typed or forwarded or screenshotted. Just paper and my own cursive, neat and steady. It was for Olivia. Not a scolding, not a sob story, just context. A thread from me to her that didn't pass through anyone else's hands. I told her about the car, about the trust, about the tuition, and I told her why. I'm not disappearing, Liv. I'm just done shrinking. I sealed the envelope and wrote her name on it in full. Olivia Margaret Reyes. The middle name was mine. Emily never liked it. Thought it sounded too old-fashioned. But Olivia always smiled when she heard it. That afternoon, the call came. Emily. Again. I didn't want to answer, but I did. Not out of duty. Out of calm. Her voice was sharp at first. Where are you? I'm safe, I said. With Brenda? You can't just take things, Mum. I didn't take. I reclaimed. There was a pause. I didn't mean what I said. You did, I replied gently. You just didn't mean for me to act on it. Another silence. Longer this time. The boys are confused. Olivia's upset. Then talk to them, I said. You're their mother? And what about you? She snapped. You're just going to cut us off? I didn't answer right away. Let the question settle. I'm not cutting anyone off, I said. I'm just no longer available on demand. I can't believe this, she muttered. You don't have to, I said. You only have to live with it. Then I ended the call. That night, Brenda and I made stew. The kind you let simmer for hours, the kind that fills the house with scent and comfort. We didn't talk much, just stirred and seasoned and let the quiet say what it needed to. I thought of Olivia, wondered if she'd opened the envelope yet, if she read the part about the trust, about the account in her name. I hoped she felt seen, really seen, because in all this, she was the only one who looked at me with something other than obligation. The doorbell rang around 7. Brenda looked at me. I nodded. She answered it. It was Olivia. She stood on the porch, arms folded, eyes red. Hi, Grandma, she said, voice trembling. Hi, sweetheart, I whispered. She stepped forward, hugged me hard. Not the kind of hug you give when you're sorry for someone else, the kind you give when you finally understand. I got your letter. I hoped you would. She looked up at me. You did all that for me? I nodded. For you? For me? For what's right? She blinked back tears. I'm sorry. I didn't know it was that bad. It wasn't bad, I said. It was invisible. That's harder to explain. She sat with us at the table, ate stew, didn't touch her phone once. That night, I slept even deeper. Not because someone owed me anything, but because finally, I owed nothing to anyone who didn't see me. In the morning, Olivia was still asleep on the pull-out couch in Brenda's den, wrapped in one of her grandmother's old quilts. I stood quietly in the doorway for a moment, watching the rise and fall of her breath. It was a strange kind of peace, fragile but real. Her bag was slumped beside the chair, her boots tucked neatly near the vent. She hadn't come out of obligation. She'd come because she wanted to understand. That mattered. I went to the kitchen and started coffee. Brenda was already there, slippers scuffing across the linoleum, holding the newspaper with 2 fingers like it might bite. She stayed, huh? I nodded. She always had a different look about her, Brenda said. Didn't blink like her brothers. Always watched the room. She sees people, I said. We drank our coffee in silence. The early sun slanted through the windows, landing on the tin box I kept my checkbook in. I hadn't opened it in months. I slid it toward me now. Not out of habit, out of clarity. I flipped through the stubs, mortgage supplements, camp deposits. That time Emily lost her insurance card and needed help covering the dentist. None of it felt cruel, not when I wrote them. But looking now, it wasn't generosity. It was self-erasure, one line at a time. At the very back was the old stub from when I'd paid for the Honda. The dealership copy was clipped to it. I stared at the number, circled in red by the finance guy, like a badge of pride. Emily never said thank you. I remember her exact words. Well, we needed a second vehicle anyway. The paper felt lighter than it should have. By the time Olivia shuffled into the kitchen, hair messy, face still sleepy, I had breakfast half ready. She smiled and grabbed a glass of orange juice. "You're making eggs?" "They're edible, I promise." She sat down across from me, folded her arms on the table, and rested her chin on them. "I called Dad last night," she said softly. "He was mad. I mean, not shouting mad, just confused." I nodded. "I imagine he is. He said you overreacted." I didn't flinch. That's a word people like to use when they don't want to face what they did. She stared at the table. "He doesn't see it, Grandma." I tried explaining. About the cot, about the car, about the way you were treated. But he just kept saying it wasn't intentional. "It doesn't have to be," I said. "Neglect rarely wears a name tag." She looked up at me, and for the first time, I saw it. Not just love. Loyalty. She wasn't going back to blindly agree. "I want to stay here for a few days," she said. "You don't need to do that." "I know. But I want to." She helped me finish breakfast. We ate on Brenda's back porch, bundled in sweaters, legs tucked up. The sky was pale blue. The air smelled like pine and frost. "I was thinking," Olivia said between bites, "I want to get a part-time job. Even with the trust, I want to contribute to school stuff. Books. Whatever." I smiled. "That's admirable. But don't let pride get in the way of your growth. Take help when it's given with respect." She looked at me. "You never got that, did you?" "Respect?" "Not from your parents," I admitted. "Not for a long time." She reached across the table and squeezed my hand. "That ends with me." Later that day, she wrote a letter, addressed it to her parents. She let me read it before she sealed it. It wasn't cruel. It wasn't angry. It was simply honest. "I stayed with Grandma," she wrote, "and I saw how it feels to be treated like an afterthought. I won't be part of that." She slipped the envelope into her bag. "I'll deliver it myself," she said. That night, she sat on the couch with me, and we watched a movie. One we both hated but laughed through anyway. And for the first time in years, I didn't feel like a guest in someone else's life. I felt like someone with a place. 2 days later, the knock came. Sharp, controlled, unmistakably Emily. I was in Brenda's kitchen, wiping down the counter when I heard it. Olivia was in the backyard, headphones on, sketching something in her journal. Brenda peeked through the curtain and looked back at me. "Your daughter," she said. "And she's wearing that 'let me speak to the manager' face." I dried my hands slowly. "Let her in." Brenda opened the door, but only slightly. "Emily?" she said calmly. "You here to shout or to talk?" Emily exhaled, clearly caught off guard. "I'm here to talk to my mother." Brenda stepped aside without a word. Emily walked in with her purse clutched to her chest like a shield. Her boots tapped a steady rhythm across the tile. She stood in the kitchen like it was foreign territory, her gaze flitting from the wallpaper to the old table, to the pot of soup simmering on the stove. I didn't offer her a seat. "Mum," she said, her tone falsely gentle. "We need to clear a few things up." I leaned against the sink, arms crossed. "Then clear them." She looked momentarily thrown, then quickly recovered. "I think what happened, it escalated. And maybe it didn't need to." "No," I said, keeping my voice even. "It needed to. It just didn't need to be ignored for so long." Her mouth tightened. "I wasn't trying to make you feel unwanted. But I did feel that way. That's the difference." "I said you could stay. For one night," I reminded her. "On a cot. In a laundry room." In a house I helped pay for. In a car I gave you, which you called me about only after it was gone. Her face flushed. We were under stress. And I've been under silence. We stood like that, a strange symmetry between us. Mother and daughter, both too proud, too hurt, too practiced in avoiding the real thing. Emily softened slightly. The boys asked about you. Did they? Before or after I left? She didn't answer. I'm not here to make you feel small, she said. But you left without giving us a chance to make things right. You had years, I said. She looked away. I got your message. I didn't send one. The car. The trust. Olivia staying here. That's not a message, I said. That's me choosing who I invest in. Silence again. A heavy one. I'm your daughter. I know. Her voice broke a little. I don't want this to be it. Then show me something different. She blinked. What do you mean? I mean, don't come here with explanations. Come with actions. Come with effort. Don't ask me to forget. Ask me to believe. She stepped back. Hurt? Maybe. But also shaken. Because for once I wasn't softening at the edges. For once I wasn't cushioning her guilt. Just then, Olivia stepped through the back door, spotted her mother, and stopped mid-step. Hi, Mum. Emily turned. Liv. I left you a letter, Olivia said. I meant it. Emily looked between us. You're not coming home? Olivia's voice was steady. Not until you understand what home actually means. Emily stood in the centre of the kitchen, purse still clenched, her shoulders too high, her words too stuck. I'll go, she said eventually. I nodded. Take care, Emily. At the door, she turned. If I wanted to talk again, would you answer? Depends, I said. Are you calling as my daughter, or as someone who finally sees me? She didn't answer, just nodded slowly, then left. Brenda returned from the hallway with a raised eyebrow. Well? I exhaled. That was the sound of a cycle trying to break. Do you think it will? I looked at Olivia, who was already back to sketching at the table, her tea cooling beside her, her back straight. With her? Maybe. With me? It already has. The day after Emily left, there was no word from her. No call, no text, not even a vague message passed through Olivia. I wasn't surprised. That girl, no, that woman, needed time. Pride doesn't melt easily, especially when it's been cultivated over years of pretending nothing's wrong. Brenda didn't mention her. Olivia didn't either. And I certainly wasn't going to give the silence any more power than it already had. Some things aren't owed a response. Instead, I focused on the things that made sense again, like baking. I made cornbread in Brenda's cast-iron pan, the one that weighed as much as a bowling ball. Olivia helped. She asked if she could learn how I made the crust on my sweet potato pie. I told her the truth. It's half patience, half lard, and a bit of pretending you're not furious while you need. She laughed. So that's why yours always tastes so deep. Pain seasons better than sugar, I said. She nodded like she understood. That afternoon, I opened the closet in Brenda's guest room and took out the small cedar box I kept my documents in. Not the financial ones, the emotional ones. Letters, photos, cards, scraps of old school drawings folded like love notes. I hadn't looked through it in years. I always thought if I reopened it, I'd be admitting to some kind of defeat. But now, it just felt like inventory. At the top was a crayon drawing from Emily, age 6. A shaky figure in a purple dress, holding hands with a taller woman labelled Mommy. We had triangle bodies and spaghetti hair. I traced the word Mommy with my finger, gently. She used to look at me like I was the center of her universe. Then life happened. College, men, career, the invisible tug between needing help and resenting it. Somewhere in the tangle of mortgages and milestones, she forgot that I wasn't just a background figure in her story. I wasn't angry about it anymore. Anger needs energy. I was somewhere quieter now, where memory still tugged, but didn't bruise. I took a picture of the drawing and sent it to her. No words, just the image. An hour passed. Then my phone buzzed. A message from her. I remember that. I think I still have the matching one, the one you drew me back when I cried in class. I didn't respond. Let her sit with it. That evening, Olivia came back from a walk with a small bouquet of wildflowers. They were growing near the trail, she said, placing them in an old glass jar on the table. They looked like they belonged here. She was right. They did. We played gin rummy on the porch as the sun set. Brenda joined in, offering running commentary on our atrocious math skills and flimsy poker faces. For once, I let myself lose a round or two. Not out of strategy, just comfort. It was good to be among people who didn't need me to perform usefulness. The stars came out slow and scattered. Olivia leaned back in her chair, gazing up. "Grandma, do you think Mum can change?" I didn't answer right away. "I think people can choose to," I said finally, "but they have to want the truth more than their comfort." She nodded, quiet. The doorbell rang after 10. We weren't expecting anyone. Brenda peered out the window, then turned to me. "It's your girl. Again." I stood, slow and steady. "Alone?" "She is." I opened the door. Emily looked smaller, not physically but in presence. Her shoulders weren't square, her eyes weren't guarded. She wasn't holding a purse this time, just her phone in one hand, like a pass she didn't know how to use. "I saw the drawing," she said. "I thought you might. I forgot how much of you I had, how much of me came from you." I nodded. "I don't know how to fix this," she added, voice low. "It's not a fix," I said. "It's a rebuild." She swallowed hard. "Can I try?" Behind me, Olivia waited in the glow of the hallway. Brenda pretended to be distracted by her crossword. I stepped aside, just a little. "Come in," I said. "But know this, it's not about returning to what was. It's about becoming something we've never been." And for the first time in decades, I saw my daughter listen without defending. Emily didn't say much after she stepped inside, just stood in Brenda's hallway, blinking as though she wasn't sure what to do with the invitation. It wasn't warmth she was met with, not yet. But it wasn't a cold shoulder either. It was space. The kind she never made for me, but now had to earn for herself. Brenda nodded at her politely from the living room, didn't bother hiding the way she studied her. Olivia gave her a small, measured hug, more out of curiosity than forgiveness. That's the thing about daughters and granddaughters. They mirror the silence we grow in. I offered her a chair at the kitchen table. She took it, hands folded tight like she was back in school, waiting for grades she wasn't sure she earned. I poured her tea. Nothing more. For a long time, we just sat. The clock ticked. The air felt like a held breath. Then softly she said, "I think I thought love was proof, not practice." I looked at her. "I figured if I provided, if I answered your calls sometimes, if I remembered your birthday with a card, that meant I loved you, that it was enough." I didn't interrupt. Let her talk. "But then you left, quietly. And you didn't come back like before. You didn't call to check if we were mad. You didn't ask if it was okay to take the car. You just left. And that was the loudest thing you've ever done." Still, I said nothing. I asked myself why it shook me. And the only answer I had was this. Maybe I got so used to you being there, I stopped asking if you wanted to be. I put my mug down gently. Emily, I didn't leave to hurt you. I left because you didn't see me anymore, and I finally realized I couldn't keep staying where I wasn't welcome, even if that place was once my own child's home. She nodded, tears in her eyes now. Not dramatic ones, just slow, heavy drops that come when you finally understand you were the one missing the signs. I want to make room again, she said. It's not about room, I replied. It's about respect, and it's earned, not inherited. I understand, she whispered, and if I don't yet, I'm willing to learn. That did something inside me, not heal, not erase, but loosen the grip around my heart that had kept disappointment wrapped tight for years. We didn't hug. That would have been too easy. Instead, I slid a folded piece of paper across the table. She opened it. It was a list, not demands, not ultimatums, just truths. What I will no longer do. Sleep on fold-out beds in laundry rooms. Pretend one night is enough for a lifetime of love. Offer gifts to earn a seat at a table I helped build. Accept silence as kindness. Forget who I am to keep the peace. She read each line slowly, her mouth set in a firm line. At the bottom, I'd written, "This is not punishment. This is preservation." She folded the paper carefully and tucked it into her coat. Does this mean we can't start again? I shook my head. It means if we do, it'll be on new ground. She stood, walked to the door, then paused. If I invite you over properly, room made, respect shown, would you come? Maybe, I said. If the invitation's about me, not guilt. She nodded. Fair enough. After she left, Brenda walked in and arched a brow. Well, she didn't throw anything. That's progress. Olivia smiled faintly. She cried, though. I think it finally landed. Let's hope it took root, I said. That night, I took out my journal, wrote 2 pages. Not about pain, not about anger. Just about a woman who used to shrink herself so others could stand taller, and who now sat at her own height, on her own chair, at her own table. And for the first time, the story didn't end in silence. The next morning was the kind that carried no grand message, just sun on the window pane, the smell of toast, the scrape of Brenda's slippers across the floor. Life doesn't always give you epilogues. Sometimes it just continues, softer than before. I made breakfast for 3. Olivia came into the kitchen first, hair still damp from the shower, wrapped in a sweater 2 sizes too big. She sat at the table and smiled when I handed her a plate. I never knew eggs could taste like boundaries, she said. I chuckled. They're scrambled with a pinch of self-respect. Brenda came in next, holding the morning paper like it had personally offended her. Local council's cutting funding for the senior centre again, she muttered. We ought to chain ourselves to the doors. I'll bring snacks, I said. We ate in a kind of peace that comes only when things have been said. Not all fixed, not yet, but acknowledged. Sometimes that's more powerful than repair. My phone buzzed around 10. A text from Emily. I cleaned out the guest room this morning, replaced the cot with a new bed. Real linens. Dressers empty. Room's yours when you want it, or not. Just wanted you to know. No pressure. No guilt. Just a statement. A space offered, not demanded. I stared at the message for a while, then locked my phone and set it face down on the table. Later that afternoon, Olivia asked if she could go back home for a few days. I want to talk to Dad, she said, on my own terms. I nodded. You know where to find me if it goes sideways? She smiled. I do. She packed her bag slowly, folding things with more care than I expected. Before she left, she hugged me, tight, quiet, like she was memorizing the shape of me. "I meant it, Grandma," she said. "What I wrote. I see you now." "I know, honey," I whispered. "And that's enough." When she left, the house felt still again. Not empty, just still. I made tea, sat in the armchair near Brenda's bookshelf, and pulled out a novel I'd started 3 years ago, but never finished. I used to put books down because I got too tired, or because someone always needed something: a ride, a meal, a signature, a check. This time I turned the pages slowly, letting the words land. The world didn't fall apart because I wasn't available. Around dusk, there was another knock at the door. Brenda opened it. It wasn't Emily. It wasn't Olivia. It was Paul, Emily's husband. He looked like he'd aged 10 years in the last 10 days, or maybe I was just seeing him clearly for the first time. "Mrs. Sewell," he said, not quite meeting my eyes. "May I talk to you?" I nodded and gestured to the porch. He sat stiffly, hands clasped. "I won't stay long. I just wanted to apologize." I waited. "We treated you poorly. Not just this Christmas. For years. I made excuses. Said we were busy. Said we'd make it up to you later." "You didn't have to come here for that," I said calmly. "I did," he replied. "Because Emily's trying. She's scared she's ruined it all. And I know it's not mine to fix. But I wanted to at least tell you I see it now." I nodded. "You see it. That's step one." He stood slowly. "If you ever come back, you'll have a real bed, a room that's yours, and a family ready to listen." "I'll think about it," I said. He hesitated, then added, "Olivia's lucky to have you. I hope we'll be too." When he left, Brenda stepped onto the porch beside me, holding 2 mugs. "Well," she said, handing me one, "the people are lining up. I'm not keeping score." "Maybe not," she said, "but you sure as hell changed the game." I took a sip. The tea was awful. But the taste of standing tall, that was exquisite. The days moved gently after that. Not rushed, not dramatic, just steady like a clock finally set to the right time. I found myself waking earlier, walking more. Not far, but far enough to breathe. Brenda started calling them my freedom strolls. She'd wave from the porch, coffee in hand, like I was off to conquer something. Sometimes I'd stop by the park, sit on the bench near the dog fountain and watch people pass, some with strollers, some with briefcases, some with exhaustion in their bones. I'd wonder how many women my age were walking around with the same silence I'd carried for years, the kind that doesn't look like pain until someone listens long enough. On a Thursday, Olivia called. "He cried, Grandma, Dad. He actually cried." "Did he say why?" "He said he didn't realize how quiet the house was until I left. He said it felt like guilt was hanging in every corner." I nodded. "Sometimes it has to echo before people hear it." "He asked if you'd ever come back." "What did you say?" "I said maybe, but not to be rescued, to be respected." Smart girl. I spent the next few afternoons going through old paperwork, not the heavy stuff. Just small things. Cards, receipts, scribbled reminders I'd kept tucked in drawers. I shredded most of them. There's something satisfying in feeding the past to a machine that turns it into harmless ribbons. Then I opened the bottom drawer of my suitcase. The envelope, the one with the check I never gave them. I looked at the date. It was already stale. But I didn't tear it up. I endorsed it to Olivia instead. Signed it with a note. "Use it for books, for rent, or for a rainy day, but never for silence." Brenda and I started cleaning out her attic, a strange thing at our age. To sort, to lift, to part with things. but it felt like we were clearing space not for more life, but for better life, one box at a time. In the middle of it, I found an old cassette tape. Brenda squinted at it. "That's from my second wedding," she said. "God help us." I laughed. "Should we listen?" She shook her head. "Some ghosts are better dusted than summoned." By Saturday, I'd decided. Not about moving back, not about reconciliation, but about something else. "I want my own place," I told Brenda. "A small one. Quiet. Nothing fancy. Just mine." She beamed. "I know just the realtor. She owes me 3 favors and half a pecan pie." We drove to see 2 units that afternoon. The first smelled like mildew and regret. The second had sunlight in the kitchen and a little balcony just big enough for 1 chair and a pot of basil. "This one," I said, without hesitation. Brenda clapped. "Look at you, making moves like a woman who finally realized she doesn't owe anyone her knees." I filled out the paperwork that evening, quietly. No announcements, no Facebook post, no group text to a family that once only reached out when something broke. When I told Olivia, she cried. "Can I visit?" she asked. "Always." Emily sent another message the next morning. It was short. "I hear you. I see you. I'm working on it." I didn't respond. Not because I was cold, because I believed her. And that was enough. I stood on Brenda's porch that evening, cup in hand, watching the wind scatter leaves across the sidewalk. I thought about how long I'd lived in rooms where I felt like an afterthought. About how long I kept showing up, hoping someone would remember who I was. Now, I was remembering myself, and no one was allowed to forget me again. The day I signed the lease, the sky was pale blue, almost too clean. The kind of sky that makes you feel like maybe, just maybe, something is beginning. The apartment was small. 2 rooms, kitchen barely big enough for more than 1 person at a time. But the windows opened easily, and the floor didn't creak when I walked across it barefoot. I hadn't lived entirely alone since before Emily was born. Brenda brought me a housewarming gift in a paper bag, a potted rosemary plant and a crooked wooden spoon with a bow on it. "You cook with this, and they'll taste your backbone," she said. I laughed. I've been marinating in that for decades. That first night, I didn't sleep much. Not because I was uneasy, but because it was mine. The silence, the air, even the floor lamp I'd picked out myself. I made tea at 2 a.m. and stood by the window, watching the cars glide past like small acts of faith. Nothing demanded me. No one needed anything. I didn't have to prove I belonged. Emily texted again the next morning. This time she said, "I'd like to visit you if that's okay. No expectations. Just time." I waited a few hours before replying, then sent back, "Sunday, afternoon. Bring nothing but honesty." She came with Olivia. I buzzed them in, unlocked the door, and sat at my small kitchen table, waiting. Emily entered quietly. She looked different. Not worn down, just less armored. She glanced around, noticed the rosemary on the sill, the folded quilt on the couch, the photograph of Olivia and me I'd already framed and placed beside the kettle. "It's lovely," she said. "It's enough," I replied. She nodded and sat across from me. Olivia, knowing this wasn't her conversation to start, drifted to the window, looking out. Emily cleared her throat. "I've been thinking about how many times I used your help as a cushion, and how I never asked what it cost you." I stayed quiet. "I didn't know you were lonely." "You didn't ask." She winced. "I was tired, stretched thin. You were always strong." "That's what people think," I said. "That if a woman's quiet, she must be fine. Sometimes we're just trying not to make a scene." She swallowed. "I know I hurt you. I let you. I said softly. That's what stings the most. Silence. Then, I want to start showing up. Differently. I won't rush you. But I'll wait. This time I saw it. Not guilt, not pity. Effort. The seed of something real. Olivia stepped forward. Can we have tea? I stood and moved to the stove, poured water into the kettle, reached for the good cups, the ones I bought just for me, not inherited, not gifted, not half forgotten in someone else's cabinet. We sat and drank together. No apologies repeated, no roles assumed. Just three women at a table, sorting through the quiet. Later, as they stood to leave, Emily paused in the doorway. You were always the strong one, she said. But I never saw how lonely that made you. Now you do, I answered. She nodded, and they left. That night, I took out a blank sheet of paper and wrote 5 words. I belong to myself now. I folded it and placed it inside my cedar box, next to the photograph Olivia took of me the week before, standing on Brenda's porch, hands on hips, head tilted just slightly toward the sun. I wasn't trying to look strong. I just was. And this time, it didn't feel lonely at all. The next morning, I woke early, not out of habit, but from rest. That deep kind of sleep that doesn't come from exhaustion, but peace. The sun was spilling through the curtains I'd picked myself. Soft green ones that reminded me of the aprons I used to sew when I had more time and less noise in my head. I made breakfast slowly. 1 egg. A slice of toast. No rush. I ate it at the little table by the window, alone and full. Not just with food, but with a quiet kind of fullness I hadn't known I was missing for years. Afterward, I opened the drawer with my stationery and took out the last card in the box. Simple, white, no decoration. I wrote Olivia's name at the top and began. Sweetheart, I wrote, thank you for seeing me. That's not a thing I ever expected from anyone again, but you did it, without being asked, without needing anything in return. You reminded me who I was before the years turned me into someone who said yes too easily. I won't go back to her fully. She was a little too eager. But I've brought her forward with me, and we're doing just fine. I folded it gently, slid it into an envelope, and placed it beside the rosemary pot on the sill. She'd be back soon. I knew that now, without asking. I spent the rest of the morning going through my closet. Not to clean it, just to see what I'd kept. A jacket from when I used to walk Emily to school. A scarf Olivia knitted crooked when she was 9. A pair of shoes I never wore because they made me taller than my husband, and back then, that seemed like a betrayal. I laughed at that. Out loud. At noon, Brenda called. I saw Emily at the co-op, she said. She looked like a woman learning to cook with ingredients she never read the names of. She'll get there, I said. She might, but you're already here. That afternoon, I went to the park again, brought a book, didn't read a word of it, just sat, watching the breeze lift the hair of a young woman on a bench across from me. She was bouncing a baby on her knee and looking absolutely exhausted. I almost stood to offer help. But then I stopped. She didn't need saving. She needed space, and maybe someone to see her, like I had needed for years. So I smiled, and when she glanced up, I nodded, just a little. Her eyes softened. She nodded back. That was enough. As the sky turned honey gold and shadows stretched longer, I walked home. My home. The door opened easily. My place smelled like lemon wood polish and rosemary. There was a letter on the floor, slipped through the mail slot. I picked it up. It was from Emily. I didn't open it right away. I made tea, sat in my chair, waited until the water settled before I tore the envelope. Inside, 1 page, handwritten. I still don't know how to fix what I broke, but I'm learning what it means to care in a way that doesn't cost you your dignity. I hope you'll keep a place for me, not out of obligation, but because I've finally earned it. Love, Emily. I read it twice. Then I lit a candle, poured a second cup of tea, and left it on the table. Not because I expected her, but because I was no longer waiting to be wanted. I was living. And from now on, I would only answer to doors opened in kindness, not to silence dressed as family. If you're reading this, and you've ever felt like the room you once built no longer has a chair for you, build a new room. One with windows, one with light, one with a lock that only opens for love. And when you're ready, I'll be here. If this story spoke to you, share it. Someone else may need to remember you don't have to stay where you've been forgotten.